Welcome back to The Watch. And guys, have the chickens finally come home to roost in regards to the diversity, equity, inclusion initiatives?
Nope.
You don't think so?
Nope. I do not think so. I think Disney is going full steam ahead. I think the entire industry is going full steam ahead. I think they're going to keep losing money. And that's going to be that.
Yeah,
But
Hollywood
the losing
burn.
money is kind of the chickens coming home to roost.
But it's not really because they keep doing it.
They keep doing it, but there's another aspect that's just coming up, and that is the lawsuits. Because diversity, equity, inclusion, if they are actually turning people down on the grounds of race, sex, that is illegal.
It is.
It is illegal. And Elon Musk recently tweeted this out. He says, an anonymous source just sent me this from Disney. It is mandatory, institutionalized racism and sexism, and it's basically their inclusion standards. Now, we've already covered stuff like this before. We covered Amazon's.
Amazon has it.
Amazon has it. And we already have known, it's been an open secret, this has been the case for a while. But if this is like an actual policy document, that might be legally actionable.
Yes.
And this is what he shares here. It's like, so this is their inclusion standards. Standard A, on-screen representation. So A1, characters. 50% or more of regular and recurring written characters come from underrepresented groups. Now, what do you think that means when they say underrepresented group?
Well, at the bottom it says a clause of like what is.
Yeah, I know, right?
group, which is anyone based on their their gender, their race.
They said they can't ask people that.
Oh.
So the clause is anyone involved in hiring decisions is prohibited from asking candidates and talents about their actual perceived that's funny, perceived race, religion, color, something blocked, orientation, gender identity, military or veteran status, age, disability, or any other legally protected categories. So they're not allowed to ask, but they're not saying we won't hire based on
Well, it's
this.
funny. It's like this is all the stuff you guys may be aware of, but also don't say it because that's illegal.
And this thing, so when they say underrepresented groups, there is a direct translation of what that means. Tyrant, what does that mean?
Sorry, say it again. I had a thought in my head which I want to talk about.
All right, we'll talk about it. So they're saying 50% must come from, for regular occurring and written characters, must come from underrepresented groups.
In the context of this, it obviously means someone who's not white. That's
White
that's
or
this
male,
means.
basically.
Yes. Yeah.
White, male, or straight.
Yes.
Is essentially the direct translation of what that means, which is just blatantly discriminatory.
I just love though how they say, because now it's underrepresented. Before it was what was the word they say? But when there's less of them.
Minority groups?
Minorities. It's like we have 50% minorities. It's like, well, there's minorities, so there's less of them, but we want more than half of them to be part of the cast of the math doesn't math then.
Yeah, and this reminds me of an interview that Morgan Freeman did when someone asked him about him being a black actor and getting awards, and he basically says, stop talking about it. It'll happen naturally when it happens, okay? You don't need to force this stuff. And bang on the money, right? But they're trying to force this, and economically, this is like a disaster plan, because if you are forcing 50% hiring from a minority group, all right, like, you do realize that reduces the talent pool in those groups dramatically in such a big way, because if there's equal dispersion of talent amongst any type of demographic, okay, that only, say, 1% of men are going to have, certain qualifications for a job, but then if you exclude a massive portion of that, right, and you're now selecting from a minority group, there's going to be, because based on percentage, that means a lesser number of available people who are qualified in that smaller group. And if they're hiring 50%, which is a large pool, and there's not enough qualified people in the small group, who do they end up hiring? People who are unqualified. That's the natural result. And we've been seeing this. Like so many of the people that are getting hired for ticking checkboxes suck at their job. And it does a really bad disservice for the people who are from those groups, who are good at their job, because it raises the question, why were you hired then? It makes them look bad, and it probably makes them harder to be hired as well, and all so many reasons. Like, it's just shoots himself in the foot. It's a disaster policy, and it's just blatantly discriminatory and racist and sexist. And it goes on. So Actors. 50% or more of regular and recurring actors come from underrepresented groups. Secondary characters. Meaningful inclusion of underrepresented groups as secondary or more minor on-screen individuals, including background actors. And, I mean, that's like standard one. Standard B, they talk about creative leadership. 50% or more producer and above on writing staff, and 50% or more co-producer and below on writing staff come from underrepresented groups. So, and then they go like standard C, below the line, standard D, industry access and career development. So basically all aspects of their hiring is they're aiming for, well, in a lot of instances, 50%. Look, training opportunities and skill development, craft, creative, and businesses include one-off week experience opportunities for students from underrepresented groups, which just basically means not white, again. And so there are heaps of qualified people that are clearly not getting looked at or considered for jobs purely based on immutable characteristics, right? And we've been seeing this time and time again. We've known it's been going on. This is a document saying it. Now, has it been confirmed that it's official? Disney hasn't come out and denied it.
No, but you can also just look at their casting, the way that their crew works now.
Yeah, it's pretty evident, isn't it?
The writing's on the wall when you say, just look at their work.
And you know what also is just so annoying about this? This is it creates a false perception of reality, okay? Because certain countries do have majority representative, demographic makeup, right? Do you think it's odd to see a lot of Japanese people in Japanese films?
No.
No.
It's odd to see someone who isn't Japanese in the Japanese film.
Oddly enough.
It's odd.
Right? And so the US actually has a very clear demographic makeup, right? And so they're trying to push their media to represent what the world is not. And I hate it when they do this with history, right? Where there's like, we need inclusion in history, and so we're going to make historical white people, diverse, right? But of course, if they ever did that in the reverse, or they made a diverse person white, they would scream bloody murder. So they're friggin' hypocrites. And we've been calling this out for ages. And it's just, look, it's blatant. It's here, all right? So Elon Musk, when he revealed this, he's saying he did an edition one where he says, contact me if you've lost a job or been fired on these reasons, and I'll pay for your legal fees. You didn't hear that part?
No.
That's awesome. Like, I hope he does it.
Didn't he do with the Gina Carano? We're going to talk about that? Is that
this is the other side to this, because recently Gina Carano has announced that she is filing a lawsuit against Lucasfilm and Disney for her firing.
A very quick recap was basically during the height of a lot of stuff going on, political tensions, I should say. Gina was basically sharing just, let's say, conservative sort of viewpoints, I guess. And she got fired from it, whereas Pedro Pascal was sharing, let's say, liberal points of view.
Really? And bear in mind, think about all the people that work for Disney that have attacked fans, called them vile, horrible things, and even go so far as to attack entire racial groups, like all white people are this, or all men are this, right?
Yes.
Like, think about the comments from the Snow White actress, and you go back and she has said some really horrible things, racially charged things, right? Bear in mind, all these actors that work for Disney have been saying all that. This is what Disney said about Gina Carano. Gina Carano is not currently, so this was their announcement when she was fired. Gina Carano is not currently employed by Lucasfilm, and there are no plans for her to be in the future. Nevertheless, her social media posts denigrating people based on their cultural and religious identities are abhorrent and unacceptable. So that's a flat lie of what she was saying. Like the tweet that they're referencing, she was commenting on how the Jews were treated in World War II, that they were getting dehumanized, and that people in the current day are getting dehumanized to an equivalent level, and it leads to bad things, we should stop it. That was the soul of her tweet, right? And Disney had the friggin' gall to try and construe that as her denigrating people based on their culture and religious identities, and that it was abhorrent and unacceptable. Gina's message that we shouldn't dehumanize people, Disney claims, is abhorrent and unacceptable. Can we just pause and process that a little bit? But the comments from other people that work for Disney that actually are abhorrent and dehumanizing and truly unacceptable, well, they're fine because they are pushing a different political direction, don't they? And so what Disney did was just utter vile hypocrisy. And they were telling her that, basically announcing that she's a horrible person, and she says nothing could be further from the truth. The truth is I was being hunted down from everything I posted to every post I liked because I was not in line with the acceptable narrative of the time. My words were constantly twisted and demonized and dehumanized, and dehumanized me as an alt-right wing extremist. It was a bullying smear campaign aimed at silencing and destroying and making an example out of me. Do you know what she did that caused the unhinged attacks where people would misrepresent her vilely?
I can't remember. I remember it happening at the time, and I just can't remember the reason off the top of my head.
You would think it'd have to be something unforgivable, right?
No, it was something very tepid.
Well, it was.
Was it mask stuff?
No. People were demanding that she put her pronouns in her bio.
Oh, that was it, right? Yes.
And so what she put in it was beep, bop, boop.
Yes, I remember.
Which is like just Chad move for her, because she's basically saying you're all robots, right? And I'm not doing it. But it was that. That was the unforgivable sin. These people are unhinged. And so she goes on to say, the thing is, I never even used aggressive language. I shared thought-provoking quotes, pictures, memes, and occasionally I used my own words. Not with aggression, but with respect and the occasional comedy to keep the mood light in dark times. And she says, look with your own eyes at what I posted and ask yourself, for example, where did I compare Republicans to Jewish people or the Holocaust? I didn't. Ask yourself why they were calling me a racist. Was there any merit behind that or history of it whatsoever? No. Look at why I was called transphobic for making droid noises from Star Wars. Beep, bop, boop. Was obviously directed to the online bullies that did not in any way denigrate transgender people. But yeah, that's the takeaway. Her response was like, I'm not a robot. It was her that people tell. And by the way, like the whole pronoun mafia, they are unhinged with that. And guess what? Some people actually just believe that there are two genders. They don't mean to be offensive, but people can think I'm a horrible bigot, right?
Well, it doesn't make sense
They're free to think
linguistically,
that.
right?
It's
You're a
false.
writer, you know that, right?
Yeah.
Pronouns don't make sense because it doesn't matter what your pronouns are. I can't use your pronouns while I'm talking to you. I can only use your pronouns while talking to Nathan about you. So I don't understand the whole pronoun thing just to begin with.
Well, it's also, I thought people had the right to perceive and interpret reality as they want.
Yeah.
And so people can look at me and think I'm a moron, an idiot. Yeah. That's their right. They can think of that. I can look at someone and say, make a judgment call, they're a man or they're a woman. I can believe whatever I want about other people. You can believe whatever I want about me. I thought this was just a standard of reality. But that is how dare you? You must acknowledge my, expression and identity when they don't acknowledge my identity. And many things that I identify with religiously, but they will denigrate and piss on that. But how dare, they demand special treatment. And so the hypocrisy is just abounds. And she goes on to say, but what happened to her was incredibly unjust. And I say all power to her. Take Disney all the way to court. And I hope Elon Musk continues, because what has been going on, the true racists, right? The true bigots have been Disney and the people who have been attacking Gina Carano and all these people that are just drowning in this vile ideology, right? And so legally, let's see. Well, we'll see what happens, won't we?
All right, so this whole episode, I've been trying to figure out how to phrase this that doesn't sound like bad. Just bear with me here. So this isn't a judgment either or. I just want to say that pretty much all hiring and casting for stuff requires discrimination, right? For example, if you're doing a biopic about Muhammad Ali, well, you can't really hire a white person for that. So you're discriminating based on the color of their skin because of what you're doing.
Those are specific requirements for the role. But legally...
But that is a form of discrimination.
I think that's only an exception, because legally, you can discriminate based on the qualifications of the job. You can't discriminate based solely on someone's... So the thing is, if they qualify for the job for every other thing, and nothing excludes them because of race, gender, whatever, right?
Yeah.
Right? They cannot legally be denied that position, which people are getting denied. Like, so if you are playing a black character, right?
Yeah.
The people are entitled to, hire black people. By the way,
Yes.
they could hire a white person and put them in blackface if they wanted. They'd just get crucified for it.
But that's what I'm saying is like all forms of thing, even like when you're picking like who you want to date,
Well,
all
that's
these things
yeah.
are forms of discrimination.
Yes.
When people say discrimination, it's always such a loaded term in terms of
Oh,
like
yeah,
it's purely negative.
There are
In
some
fact, it's like-
times in your life where you need to be discriminatory,
Yes.
like finding a partner, or
Exactly,
a wife, or a husband. You want to be very discriminating in your judgment of who you're choosing with that.
Yeah.
Okay. So yeah, no, discrimination actually is an important part in many aspects. It's just that it's illegal to discriminate on the grounds of race, sex,
Yes,
gender.
but then there are certain examples where
Religion.
you would need to do that because of what the role or whatever it is requires of it.
Yeah, but the clear legal groundwork here is when people are getting denied jobs.
Yes, in the specific case of Gina Carano, that's something different. Yes, I'm just talking about like because people always bring up this conversation. It's always such a blanket like all forms of discrimination are bad. It's like, well, hold on. There's nuance.
Yeah,
there.
yeah. But you can clearly see the distinction of where the legal ramifications comes in. It's when people who qualify for the job under every single requirement and then are denied it based on the grounds of race, gender, sexual preference, or any of that, right? But if the job actually specifically requires someone to look a certain way, you're allowed to seek people who fulfill that job requirement. Yeah, but the thing is, in most Disney instances, it doesn't require people, who are not white, essentially. And so, Elon Musk, this is like, he's a bit of a wrecking ball at times, and I say, all power to him.
Do you identify with him a bit, Shad?
In what way?
Bit of a wrecking ball, just
I don't know.
chaotic. Tweeting stuff out, just twitting all day, whatever they call it.
I don't tweet all day for one. I like do one tweet a day on average.
That's
more than
addiction!
tyrant.
That's
And I'm
100.
completely sucked into the Twitter thing for tweeting one thing a day.
It's 100. That's 100% more than me.
I am thoughtful about my tweets, and I do prepare them, and because they sometimes get attention. That kind of threw me off.
Yeah, sorry. Yeah.
Oh, I don't have the influence of Elon.
I just
but
thought like a
I
kindred soul.
stand by my principles. That I do, and I don't back down even when dogpiled on.
Oh, okay, yeah. Okay, that's good. We finished?
Well, it's true though.
I didn't say. I said, is he a kindred soul to you? Yes. Seems like
it's
it.
very successful. I wouldn't mind to emulate some of his successes. So I just found this as a really interesting news item, and I want to see where it goes. Because legally, this should be a slam dunk, but
My other thought too is, what does she want to get out of it? Is it going to be payments for losing her job? I'm guessing she doesn't want to work with them anymore because of how
I
they
hope
are.
it just bleeds them dry.
I would
Take 'em to
probably
the
say
cleaners.
damages. In this particular case, it's probably
Yes.
damages because
I've
Disney is a
lost job
massive.
opportunities. We're talking-
Yeah, they're a massive conglomeration, and them saying that sort of stuff can blackball you.
I mean, and I have seen some people try and say that, look, this isn't going to do a thing for Disney. They have like an army of lawyers that they'll just wrap it up for like 10 years in whatever, right? The thing is, though, Disney's losing money and lawyers are expensive. They're like, even then.
Yeah, but it's always about orders of magnitude, right?
Yeah.
When they can spend $400 million on an Indiana Jones film, like they can spend $400
But
million.
they're in the worst position they've been in years. They
They
cannot
are.
afford to lose $100 million in legal fees.
And yet they somehow managed to pull through every single time.
I don't know. They're not
There must
pulling
be
full.
some fairy godmother
They're
that just...
starting to bleed.
But they're still breathing.
I mean, they've had to do layoffs, and it's not looking bright on the horizon.
Look, the day that Disney collapses, we will all do a video straight away.
We'll celebrate.
like-
What should we do to celebrate if Disney goes under? I don't know. Like that's
I
something
don't know.
special.
We need to think about.
I mean, look, how sad is
I'll see
because
how much the IPs
by
are.
the way, like
That's what we'll do.
once upon a time, I would have been batting for Disney. Disney made great family content, wholesome stuff. They've fallen so far from grace, and they are kind of the leaders of the woke agenda corrupting media and specifically targeting children's media as well, which is why it's garnered so much hate and vitriol from not just us, a lot of people, right? And it's the fact Disney, they are so blazing about it, blatant, right? And they're not changing. And so they become the main primary target for this type of stuff, even though this whole industry is drowning in this stuff. Amazon, right? Netflix, and, Warner Brothers, they have all this stuff. It's just Disney is the most blatantly unashamed, ideologically driven company. And so I look forward to seeing their downfall, and I will celebrate it. That's
If
what
it
they
ever
get.
happens, I don't know. I would have thought 10 years ago that they were going to, and we're still here.
Well, they shall fall one day, and great shall be the fall thereof, and we shall celebrate. Until that time, stay on watch.